Then we'll ask, did the government read the report done by non-consult? And I'll come back to that issue because I want to address it separately. And why did they reject the project? And did Harman read, as I said before, I'm going to address that separately. Why did Harman read this report? And does he know that the report concluded that a mile would have saved the country $3.3 billion US dollars, over 600 billion Guyana dollars in 20 years? That was the conclusion of the report. But we'll come to that. So we'll seek answers to those issues there. Now, now that they've canned this project, how would they meet the renewable energy commitment that they made to the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change? Well, the IPCC pledges. Our country went on its own and pledged, nobody forced them to, said there by 2025, 100% of our power will come from renewable energy. So how is it that you're going to achieve this without constructing a mile? We'll want answers to that. And then we'll want answers to another question. Was a feasibility study done for oil and gas, for gas to generate electricity versus hydropower? Because as far as I'm aware, as we've been told from ExxonMobil, no feasibility study has been done for the gas sector. And we want to know, why did they sole source the contracts for the solar panels that are being installed in the interior? In this year's budget, we have about $1 billion for putting in place these solar panels for some communities. They have sole sourced this. Why did they do that? And what is going on with the wind farm project? So whoever is coming from the government, they can now come with answers to these questions, because the PPP representative there, the opposition representative there, will be seeking answers to these questions and many more, so that answers we can't get elsewhere from them because they go mum, but hopefully in that forum we'll be able to get there. There's a panel on taxation. So we want to know not about the 200 taxes and licensing fees alone. What is their philosophy in taxation? Would taxes seen only to collect revenue, or taxes as part of fiscal policy being used to stimulate the economy? Because depending on raising taxes or lowering taxes, a state can give a stimulus to the private sector. So what is your philosophy on taxes? Because you seem to want to scrape every cent out of past wealth and an economy that is declining, that is shrinking in size, so future tax takes would be lower. And in the process of doing that, you're removing incentives for production by putting taxes on a whole spate of productive activities. So we want to understand their philosophy for taxation. And hopefully we'll be able to get clear answers to that. There are lots of questions that we want to ask about in specific taxes, etc. How could you be talking about giving people a better life and then increasing the tax burden on them, ordinary people? What drives you to put taxes on education or on food items? What drives you to do that? When on some of those food items, a single car that we buy for a government minister will probably be, we pay more for that than the taxes we're collecting from some of those food items. And then on the governance, Nagamutu is supposed to appear there. So we hope Mr. Flip Flop doesn't go rubber stamp, comes there to address some serious issues. And we're going to talk about several governance issues, but the key one will be about public procurement again. Public procurement, we have a long list of about 45 breaches in the last year alone of the tendering system. Even now as we're speaking, they're trying to usurp. Ed Shale pointed this out to me this morning, that they are acting in violation of the Procurement Act by taking on functions, the executive taking on functions that should be within the purview of the PPC, the Procurement Commission. And we know now that ministers should have already given up this no objection rule, but they are not limiting themselves to a no objection rule. When we remove the cabinet, when we pass this law, we remove the cabinet from the approval of contracts. And we said that the cabinet must have a no objection rule until the PPC comes into place. Now, the no objection, for the cabinet to exercise the no objection, it has to give reasons why it is withholding its no objection, and write the tender board explaining why. It cannot then say, we're stopping this contract, so give it to another person. This is what this cabinet is doing. It is now gone back to the approval of contracts, not exercising a no objection rule any longer. And the prime candidate for audit will be a police audit, which special people will be the operation of the tender administration, the central tender administration. They are complicit in a ton of illegalities. Prime candidate in the future for audit, I'm telling you, prime candidate. And so we will be addressing all of these issues. Let me make it clear that if the ministers are going to come there to, well, the public will see, because these are the questions that are going to be dealt with. But if they want to come and make canned speeches, we have no interest in participating in any summit that will just get a repetition of the slogans with no serious attempt to address the issues faced with our economy. But so far, based on the assurances we got from the private sector that we will be allowed to raise all of our concerns there, we are slated for participation. Personally, I will not be there, but we have others. I just have to end by a couple of things. I wanted to come back to this whole saga of Amila Falls Hydro Can, Harman, Starbuck News. And I just wanted to deal, I'm not going to go into it in great detail, but I'm going to quote from the article. Asked specifically if that means that the government was not prepared to go and find another investor, Harman replied, no. The point is, are you going to give us money to do that? To go and find another investor? Harman explained that with an estimated US $1 billion AFHP project, government could not fund it on its own, even if it accessed the $80 million that the Inter-American Development Bank is holding through an agreement with Norway. For the government of Guyana, he explained, the case for producing energy through Amila Fall is not as easy as many believe, since there are myriad questions left unanswered, and a fact-based assessment by consulting company Norconsult highlighted these facts. So that's what Harman said. Harman said, we're canning this project because we don't have money to go back to tender. Who will give us money? And that the consultants that came in from Norway, who the government agreed to do a study, an independent, fact-based study after they had claimed the project was corrupt, that those people raised a lot of questions. Well, let's go. This leads me to conclude that neither Harman nor Patterson nor anyone in this government has ever read the Norconsult report. They're jeopardizing our entire agreement with Norway because of these loose statements, and they're harming the future of Guyana for cheaper renewable energy by this ignorance, total, unadulterated, ridiculous, I can't even, sort of ignorance. The Norconsult report said, if you go and read it online, anybody could read it. It says, on page 3, the only realistic path for Guyana towards an emission-free electricity sector is by delivering its hydropower potential. That's one. We regard the soundness of the Amila Falls hydropower as evident, the soundness as evident. And in order to follow up the intentions of the LCDS as fast as possible, we recommend the preparations for Amila Falls hydropower project to be resumed, page 38 of the report. It says, it is our opinion that the boot-type public-private partnership model should be maintained for the project implementation. Now notice, Harman said, who will give us the money? That the government doesn't have the money. But if he understood the model, the boot model, that was all of our contribution to the project, the money we were getting from Norway. Because the rest was a combination of equity from private partners and loans to the investors, who will have then supply power to the government of Guyana at half the price of that we were paying at that time for electricity. That would save us a large sum of money, and we would have had the biggest investments without not a cent of debt to the public treasury. Not a cent of debt. But this guy says, who's going to give us the money? He didn't read the report. The boot model was recommended, as we had. And then, construction. So they were talking about corruption too. The report said, after competitive bidding between 5 pre-qualified candidates, AFHI in 2008 selected China Rail First Group as EPC contractor. AFHI, it's not the government of Guyana, it was the developer that selected the company. Notice I'll come to that in a moment, let me don't get sidetracked. So, and then that's on page 12. On page 32, this is what it says. Constructing Amila Falls would cut electricity costs by more than 50% for the energy produced by Amila Falls hydropower project, or $3.3 billion US dollars over 20 years. $3.3 billion US dollars multiplied by 200 is close to 700 billion Guyana dollars we would save in 20 years. Just imagine the staggering proportions of the number. And these people are not going to pay attention to it. This is an independent consultant hired by Norway, one of the most respected consultancy group. And they're running around with this man, Lloyd Singh, and the hydropower, what's his name, the wind farm, and a couple of other things. This is it. And now talking about gas. It's a tragedy. It's a tragedy that we have people who don't read even reports that are commissioned. Well, I don't think he needs to call me to tell me that, given the practice in the past. So let us say I'm hopeful. Let us say I'm hopeful because in the past he has just written me and said, to say I did not find anyone unacceptable. So I'm hoping the departure from how I get the news now means that it's positive news. So let's keep it at that. Let's keep our fingers crossed and our hopes up. Although a lot of people think that that's naivety.
And another question, you said Mr. Brassington had a list of all the.
Yeah,
You'll make that list?
I can send you the report that was done. I think it's a report. It's in the public domain. Privatization in tables, and it's available. And you can see every single entity done between 1992 to 2011. If you ask the several companies they privatized pre-1992, whether a report was done on it, nothing. You don't have a report. And we have a report on every single transaction that flowed through the privatization unit. Even small plots of land in Linden, etc., that flowed through that unit between 1992 and 2011. And you should have a copy of it. I'm sure if you don't have a copy, we'll get a copy to you.
Sir,